And hello, Bills Mafia. That red light is on, which means this week's episode of Under Review is a full go. And joining me today is Kevin Massare from Cover One as well. And we are going to be talking about the Bills versus Raiders. Extremely fun week 2 matchup. So buckle up and let's go.
Previous play will go under review.
And thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. This is a bit of a weird circumstance, much earlier than I usually have this show. But as I announced in last episode, and I will say again today, I had to pre-record this show as I am going to be away for a wedding this weekend. So it is very, very kind of Kevin to join me today on short notice. I really appreciate you being here, man. How you doing?
Loving being here, man. Thanks for having me. Always love being on Under Review on this nice Saturday morning. So always excited to get this thing rolling and get things in the right way, man.
Yes, sir. Yes. And what right way it was today for the Buffalo Bills as they absolutely flummox the Las Vegas Raiders in absolutely epic fashion as they move to 1-1 on the season. Kevin, really hard to nitpick this game. I mean, it could have been better, which is crazy to say because the team dropped over 38 points. So just give me your overall thoughts on this game. I mean, how you feeling? What do you think about their performance?
You know what? Overall, Joe, it was a really good performance. It's one that they had to have. I mean, the craziness coming out after the first drive each way on Sunday afternoon was wild. Like, you had some crazy talks about, are we going to, the Bills going to go to, they can be 0-2. Are they going to be a 5-win team? Just a ton of craziness going on across. And does McDermott know how to call defense? Why did they run up the middle twice? So many just outlandish takes. And it's really good to get back on the scoreboard. And, the biggest takeaway I had, Joe, and I got to bring it up early, is the dominance that they had over Max Crosby. He was their one premier player, multiple pancakes by Spencer Brown. Will he get beat occasionally? But is it the end of the world that we're getting adequate to good right tackle play right now? Thus, and even in the Jets game, minus the one clip of him getting bull rushed, they're getting good offensive line play right now. You do not score 38 points with below average line play, and if they can keep this up, they're going to be tough to beat as the season approaches. And you see that Jets team go down without the high that they had last week in the American flag game, and Aaron Rodgers running out to on 9/11 to beautiful music and a beautiful scene, and it's tough to come in the Bills defense to game plan for a different quarterback. It really is. If the quarterback is competent enough to take snaps, which Zach Wilson is, it's tough to do in game, Joe. So it was really good to see them come through that, and now hoping they can put it all together going forward against this Washington team, but 2-0 team. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely. That matchup is going to be a lot of fun, and that's a team that you don't sleep on. And given the post-game speech that I saw from McDermott and Josh Allen today, I doubt they're taking them lightly. I think they performed incredibly well and have a lot to build off of, both offensively and defensively, in what was a much-needed get-right game. And yeah, Kevin, it was a wild week. And don't get me wrong, I have been on record in my show, on Spaces, and a bunch of platforms to say that Josh Allen needed to be better. And boy, was he better, man. I mean, it was just so refreshing to watch him today, because you saw what Josh Allen can be when he just takes what's given, plays a patient game, understands that the strength of this offense beyond him is the playmakers that can move the ball. And he was really he looked poised, confident. So Kevin, let's take it just bit by bit, offensively and defensively. We'll start with Mr. Josh Allen. You can see I got the jersey on, and if you don't catch it, there's a Superman shirt underneath it. That was not intended, but here we are. So good juju. What'd you think, man? Give me your overall assessment of Josh Allen.
I was taking a look before the show at his spray chart, and it's beautiful, man. It's what everything asked for. I mean, the number one knock against the spray chart that you see is going to be, well, it was the Raiders, who did come off of a pretty nice looking win against the Broncos, who played themselves. The Bills are playing 3 straight weeks against teams playing the Broncos. Joe, did you know that?
Yeah,
3 straight,
that wild.
back to back. It's really weird. So again, I can see a lot of this Broncos team, and the Bills will play the Broncos in a month or two down the road. But it's interesting you can take a little bit away from it because they're playing the same opponents in 3 straight weeks. And you saw this Washington team almost lose to this Broncos team on a Hail Mary that was completed for a touchdown, and then missed the 2-point conversion. So it's just a wild game there against Denver and Washington to complete a Russell Wilson Hail Mary. I was looking bleak in Washington, but Josh Allen himself did everything you're looking for. I thought he looked good in stretches last week against the Jets. I really did. Whitehead bit on a couple of tendencies, and it worked out for him. A high-low play to Gabe Davis that, he found Gabe, throughout the day today, which was great to see when you see him complete those passes to Gabe Davis. But he missed that throw last week because Whitehead jumped it. If Whitehead guesses wrong there, Joe, it's a poke down to Gabe Davis. You'd like to see him check it down, but Josh Allen has consistently made that corner throw over and over and over in a high-low concept his entire career. It's the one throw he can make, and he did. He made it over Sauce Gardner still. Unfortunately, that was one of the bad plays, but he's completed at an extremely high clip right now. 31 for 37, like you said, against the Raiders. It's just what you want to see in these games, and you can't take anything negative. 83%. He's completing passes at a rate that no one thought he could. You take away 1 or 2 of those interceptions, and it would be looking very good. But 1-1 as they play the 2-0 Commanders in an interesting game. But other than that, I really love the performance, and they were just dominant. He could have had even more stats in terms of passing touchdowns. He took some easy runs later in the game for his team, but he was finding tight ends all over the field. It's going to be, I think we're gonna have to buckle in for a lot of 2 tight end stats.
Yes, they were primarily, and I'll find the statistics to talk about during the week, but it seemed like they were primarily in 12P and 13P today. I know Dan Orlovsky pointed that out, but yeah, Kevin, I was so pleased with him. And it was just, again, incredibly refreshing because everything I wanted, everything I asked of this quarterback, he did. And it's nice because Josh Allen and his explosiveness and his hyper athleticism, it helps. It does. And it's not something I hate. I don't want anyone here to think that I want to clip the wings of one of the best quarterbacks in the league, because at the same time, that skill set and like his superpowers, if you want to call them, are the reason that some of these touchdowns happen. I mean, man, the back foot throw with Max Crosby right in his face after he sent Spencer Brown to hell, and he just sidearms it to Shakir for the touchdown. I'm sorry, man. Like, that is just a throw that I don't know who else besides maybe Mahomes makes that throw. It is absolutely absurd. And that's the beauty of his game. But when he can just kind of put himself together, understand that it's okay to be patient, that teams are going to sit back in deep coverages and want you to be aggressive, and you can just, take those small routes to Kincaid or Knox or find Diggs in the slot, which, by the way, Ken Dorsey, good job. Good job with that. But that's what you need. And that's what I want them to pull this year, because if you are just opening it up underneath for Josh Allen and keeping things simple, it's going to just make everything expand beyond. So I was so pleased with that. But Kevin, you see my headline, or you saw my headline. I'm going to pull the Josh Allen tag real fast. James Cook, man, and the running backs cooked today. It was a great performance for the Bills rushing attack. I thought that's everything you wanted from the 3-headed back by committee. Murray and Harris get touchdowns, but James Cook gets the over 100-yard crown. Let's hear your thoughts on this Bills running back room.
Yeah, I thought early on it was a little sloppy from the Bills running room. The Bills were looking for some drive starters against too high. They didn't get it on the first drive leading to the punt. And then the ensuing Bernard interception. But, then he came back in kind of, more in the red area with Latavius Murray. You saw it get going there. They needed that aggressive and up the middle style early on. Then Latavius Murray came back out for the second drive. So at one point you thought maybe this would be a Latavius Murray game because of the matchups and what they saw from him early on in the fourth quarter. but it did not turn that way. James Cook continued to get better as the day went on. A much needed, still was paltry at halftime, but a much needed second half from James Cook that he needed. And in my opinion, for 3 poor halves. So it was good to see him have a dominant fourth half of football. And we'll see which half he really is. We'll see which James Cook we see against a good Commanders team, at least a good Commanders defense, and one they put up a lot of points. And they're 2-0 for a reason. So what James Cook will we see going forward? This is going to be a good test to see, what we have in this rushing attack. 183 yards, 5.2 yards a clip, the 2 touchdowns you already mentioned. But I really like the versatility of the run game, and you're seeing those backs get active in the running or the receiving game too. You even had Reggie Gilliam in there for a catch. You had 2 Latavius Murray catches, 4 James Cook catches. So you saw, them use their running back and tight ends a whole lot, something you haven't seen a lot underneath even Brian Dable in the past or last year underneath Ken Dorsey. So it's going to be a different style of offense, and one that definitely took a week to gel. Josh Allen had to get used to, look, this is a different offense. You're going to always, with the way it's schemed, you're going to always have somebody open. You are. You got to take it, though. And Josh was used to maybe even 21, 22 Josh of, not having anybody open. He's not. There were games last year, Joe, where Josh had nobody open. It was a route running issue. They simplified it this year, and I don't think early on or later in the Jets game he's used to having multiple receivers open at the line, because there's plenty of film that show receivers weren't winning last year. They didn't have the second tight end, so that running game is going to be a good supplement. Josh is going to continue to find this 12. We have to see how much even 13 personnel they played in, based on, I'm assuming Quentin Morrison must have had some snaps, or you can, I guess, or Gilliam. Reggie Gilliam. Yeah. So a lot of good things to take out, but I think we can confidently say this is a 75% completion percentage Josh Allen going forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the crazy part is when he had 3 turnovers or 4 turnovers in the first game, I went and looked at his chart and I saw 70%. And I was like, are you serious? The game where he gets his completion percentage, up by an insane tick, is the game where he has this many turnovers, which tells you a lot about that stat in a vacuum. But one crazy part about the rushing attack today, Kevin, James Cook averaged 7.2 yards per carry per PFF. That is just insanity. I mean, we were already kind of complimenting him off of his rookie year when he was second in the league in yards per carry, I think behind Josh Jacobs, if I'm not mistaken. 7.2 in a clip is nuts. And that's just what you wanted from Cook. That was what I felt like was his breakout game. I know a lot of those yards came on one run, but hey, they had to bleed the clock. It was still the ball given to him. He found the hole. He hit it. But when you were talking about it early, I felt like it was more of an issue where you're trying to figure out how to get more pressure from your running game up the middle. It seemed like they were trying to force Cook to go through gaps that just didn't exist on the interior of the offensive line, but more powerful backs like Latavius Murray, who ended up getting it going a bit, are able to kind of just make that push. And when you have that threat from the running attack, now all of a sudden things get a little easier because you might be able to scheme something for Cook to go outside, which is really his forte. And it worked beautifully. So again, bravo, Ken Dorsey. Again, Bills rushed a total of 183 yards. Cook had 7.2. Harris had 4.7 yards per carry. So another good, impressive clip. Just really nice to see them all get involved. But one final thought on that. 12P, and I want to bring this up. Yes. I feel like the thing about this offense this year that's going to make things so much better, and Kev, I'll ask you if you agree with this, is setting the table on first down. It felt like they were very, very adamant about just positive yards of any kind on first down to make everything set up easier, because you saw in this game something that I felt like was a problem last year wasn't rearing its head this year, was third downs were manageable. 3rd and 5, 4, 3, felt like they were just in range to convert a first down. And then at that short chain distance with Diggs, Davis, that's easy. So give me your thoughts on that. What did you feel about 12P today and how it could help the offense going forward?
Like I said, Joe, kind of in the last couple of segments we've been talking about, it's that 77% completion percentage. You don't know what they're going to do out of it. So early on, the Bills were looking to try to establish the run. Like you said, early on in the game, were there those up the middle James Cook runs there? They weren't. But they quickly realized that we're going to still find open people. We're going to try to, mix some things up, maybe put Murray in for a few series and then see if that opens anything up. And it did. And I think on the early downs, they had to be better on first down against the Jets. It was poor. They were actually pretty good statistically on second and third down last week against the Jets. And this week, they dominated at times at stretches throughout this game. I'm interested to see the EPA of each down again. I mean, the EPA of the Bills today was ridiculous. Josh Allen's an EPA machine. He's always going to dominate in that stat, and that's always going to be what the argument to the turnovers are, is that his EPA is so strong that even turnovers, and one of them last week was a positive EPA play.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
I mean, ideally, you don't have they were in 13 personnel on that play, or 23 personnel. I don't even remember when they ripped off that. And the Bills had 8 in the box. One of them was Taylor Rapp, and they unfortunately flipped the field real quickly following that Josh Allen interception. But ultimately, this 12 personnel is going to just increase that completion percentage, thus increasing first downs, thus increasing EPA. And ultimately, it's going to be a very solid year. And it took Josh, hopefully, only a game to realize, like, this isn't the high flying gun and, running gun offense of Brian Daboll that you saw with Daniel Jones struggle mightily in 2 games already. They did come back and beat a really bad Arizona team on a field goal late in that game. But ultimately just a really poor, performance by that offense until late. But, you see here for the Bills at 12 personnel in early downs is going to be absolutely enormous for the team. And Dalton Kincaid is just getting better every single rep. And Dawson Knox is the forgotten one, caught the touchdown today. But it's going to be much of that all season, to where they're going to go back and forth jockeying for these targets. And Josh is going to have a lot of 30 completion games.
I agree with that. And yeah, I can't say it any better. I just think it's so beneficial. And like you alluded to earlier, someone's going to be open. Someone is going to be open. I mean, dude, Khalil Shakir getting a touchdown today was not on my bingo card. And that's not a knock on him. I just had no idea how you'd even find use for him. And he just got open. And it was so much fun to watch. It just felt like they could punch you in the mouth any way they wanted to. And honestly, even against the Jets in stretches, they were sustaining drives. It just led to this one ugly play that kind of took it away. And, cats off, they played it well. But I agree. And it's really encouraging to see that this kind of concept that we had discussed all offseason, that, in an essence kind of felt pipe dreamish, just because we ran 12 personnel, the lowest in the league last year. Now all of a sudden we're going to be the most. Yeah. Yeah, we are. And it's pretty nuts because it's so effective. And if Allen is put in this spot where he's just simply managing, I'm fine, man. Because guess what? If teams are going to start respecting that and come up, and DBs are coming up, guess what happens? The crux of Josh Allen's strength, his arm, gets to be put on full display. And that's exciting. Yeah. So let's move on, Kevin. Got to give the flowers. You mentioned it earlier, but a nod to the Buffalo Bills offensive line. We could talk about Spencer Brown, who I thought had a good game. I also want to give flowers to Mr. Osiris Torrance. Now, I have not yet watched the film, but I saw multiple double teams that he was eating up on run plays and was so impressed. And there were clean pockets for Josh all day, a couple iffy plays, but really it felt like they had their line together, and it was so nice to see. Kevin, take it away.
I mean, one of my hot takes of the season 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago still, was the Bills O-line is going to be better than we think. And they had stretches against the Jets that proved that. For stretches, there's a few clips floating around of the one bull rush by one of the best, by John Franklin Myers, a guy that does get the best of Spencer Brown, and a one Crosby play that was called back. Ultimately, look, he's one of the best defensive ends in the league. He's had these aren't easy games. Spencer Brown's playing against Washington again this week. This offensive line's been good. I mean, it's been good. It's been creating that the stat you mentioned earlier about yards, the yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's opening up holes in the running game. Josh Allen did account for 2 more sacks today. But ultimately, 7 sacks total. Many of them are his fault. Some of them are him trying to get back to the line of scrimmage. Some of them were him, trying to make a play when, there wasn't one, just like, in the turnovers of the Jets game. But ultimately that stat's still skewed by that Jets game for the 7 points, the 7 sacks. So the O-line performs very well. I thought this was a game where that would be the one place the Raiders had a chance to win this. If they were able to win at the D line to O line, I like the Bills pretty much everywhere else in the game, but that the Bills O line was the reason they continue to have success. And if they block like this and they play 12 personnel as well as they did against the Raiders, it's going to be a very nice season, and one where I think they'll forget about the Jets game, so that it's not the topic of every single conversation what happened against Zach Wilson.
I'm certainly hoping that, and it probably won't happen, but that the praise is thrown for Josh today, because that really was a masterful performance. But yeah, his offensive line blocked well for him. I do think that one sack that he had where he just got pressure immediately up the middle felt like a missed assignment from him. That could be on him. But when it came to Spencer Brown, bravo, man. That's not an easy task to go up against Max Crosby, who is an all-world D end, and be able to go toe-to-toe with him and play well. Not elite, but well. And that's fine. And that's all I've ever wanted out of Spencer Brown, was just be good. You don't have to be all pro. If you can be, amazing. If he develops into that this year, incredible. That's everything we want. But if you're just serviceable and good for us, man, I'm fine with it, because guess what? I have confidence that the rest of the line is going to be great. I didn't even hear a peep from Dawkins and McGovern today, so I got to look at how they perform, but it felt like they performed well. Again, I applauded Torrance. I applaud Morris for
Dawkins
having a better
really
day.
Good, Joe. Dawkins.
He was?
Really good.
Yeah. I see, when I watch games live, my eyes are in a million places. Like, I can't focus on one group. I just figured I'll go back and watch that group later. But yeah, it felt like a complete game from the line. Very encouraging. I'm really pleased with it. And I just hope that, with Washington's D-line, that's going to be a bit more of a test, because that's much more of a complete unit with some great interior defensive linemen. That's really going to be your crux there. If you can win that game and beat them in the trenches, I think you'll know this O-line is for real, man. Do you agree?
I think so. I mean, it's going to be, another game where their strength of just like you could say with Max Crosby, just like you could say against the Jets, where the strength of the team is certainly that front four: Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young. They're pretty deep. I think that there's places to win. That secondary is a place for the Bills to win. I don't overly like the Washington offense, although they have scored points, 55 points underneath Eric Bieniemy in their first two games. So that's going to be a big chance. But I think that this is going to be a really big game to show if they can do it against Washington. Say what you want about Washington, but you can't knock their D-line. They're 2-0 for a reason. They played probably two of the lower end teams in the league, but got to collect the wins. Couple point games in those victories for Washington. But if the Bills can get it done O-line to their D-line, it'll probably amount to a Bills win, and B, it'll be great for the future going forward, because that was one of the biggest downfalls of the team. And some of the biggest holes so far, Joe, haven't been the problems for this Buffalo Bills team for the reason they're 1-1, I guess, if you want to say that's a problem. The right tackle spot hasn't been a big hindrance yet, and a couple of early tests. You get a third test here. The middle linebacker spot hasn't been a hindrance yet. The cornerback 2 spot hasn't been a hindrance yet. So some of these bigger holes that the team was trying to fill haven't been the issues. Certainly hasn't been the 12 personnel. So ultimately, you had a couple Josh Allen turnovers. I guess you can blame him on the quarterback. You can blame him on the scheme. You can blame it on maybe some sloppy route running. But it's nice to see the O-line gelling, and against Washington will give us a little bit more data that we desperately need. And then I think we can actually make some real opinions on the next week or two.
Right. And again, the style of offense that they're performing now, and I hope that they continue, is only going to benefit the offensive line, right? Because Allen's not holding that ball for more than a second. It seemed like the whole process was, I'm getting this ball out as quick as I can, and if I have to hold it, then we're accounting for any deficiencies we might have in the line. Spencer Brown himself talked about how they had some chips set his way, and you saw it when they played replays. Like, Knox helped them out. I know he passed off to Torrance, and then he was able to get isolated with Crosby, which was cool. They have what seems to be a plan to kind of make the life easier for the line. And again, build that confidence up, get your rhythm going, and that could, kind of pour into your running offense as well, which I think is going to be very strong with this offensive line. But Kevin, I'll ask you, any final thoughts on the offense before we transition to the defensive side of the ball today?
No, I mean, other than an early one drive punt, there's nothing really to say that they did wrong. I mean, they carry this O-line play, even had some good receiver 1, the Bills receiver 1, receiver 2, tight end 1, tight end 2. Could they develop a little bit deeper in the receiver room? I think they do need a third receiver weapon, but it's Dalton Kincaid. So we can knock them. I would have liked to see more Hardy and Sherfield, but maybe they'll have a game. But ultimately, they have shown to not really been needed. So beside maybe can we discuss a third receiver? Sure. Gabe Davis gets that out of his way for receiver 2, played well.
Had a great game.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're looking for a second receiver. That bumps you into the second echelon if you can keep that kind of performance up. So, Joe, there's nothing away. The O-line is the biggest thing. Josh Allen cleaning it up was the biggest thing. I don't have any problems with the offense at this moment. Ken Dorsey, I think, has called pretty good games so far, beside a few little lapses. But ultimately, that 12 personnel is going to be their new thing. And if they can develop it, it might be one of those things that other teams begin to follow, kind of like the Chiefs do. But I believe the Bills have a better second tight end. I think Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are better than Noah Gray. Obviously, they have Travis Kelce, but the Bills have better receivers than Kansas City. So this new style, looking like a real receiver 1, real receiver 2, real tight end 1, real tight end 2, that might be the way people go instead of trying to find these third and fourth receiving options.
Yeah, and again, we're happy they won. I obviously, and I know you agree with this, we'll see how it goes over the course of a season. But yeah, I mean, it just felt unstoppable today, man. I mean, even that end zone where they tried passing it to Knox, and I thought that they showed Diggs wide open on that play. But again, Josh looks off of Diggs to go to his next read, which was very clearly Knox. And I think it was their safety broke on Knox to help out their other DB and make a play on the ball. So I wasn't too upset. It obviously ended up not mattering, but it's crazy because it really could have been one more touchdown pass and we could have been talking about this being in the 40s. But also, for anyone who might have missed the stat line too, I can read off a couple of the receiving ones, but Davis was 4 for 4, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 92 yards, a touchdown, and averaged 15.3 yards per reception. Diggs was 7 for 7, 66 yards, 9.4, but very effective in the passing game. Kincaid, 5 for 6, 43 yards, 8.6 yards per reception. Again, just getting those early chunk plays. And I just wrote Knox and Shakir at a touchdown because wasn't really impressive stat lines for receiving yards, but overall, just contributing to the offense. And yeah, Kevin, I was impressed. I'm really happy with the way they performed, and I'm excited to see how they put it together in Washington with a much tougher ask going ahead. But speaking of asks, Kevin, I do want to ask you one thing. Do you like fantasy?
I do.
That's good because I want to tell you about the easiest way to get some action on the NFL, and it's Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game. Just pick higher or lower on your favorite or least favorite players' stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your pick'em entry, get every pick right, and take home some cold, hard cash. Use the code COVER1 and get your first deposit doubled up to $100 by Underdog. Thank you so much to Underdog Fantasy for being a sponsor and partner with Cover One. Now, let us move on to the defensive side of the ball. Kevin, I saw a tweet from you today, and that tweet was about a certain linebacker that many people dreaded going into the year. Many people were unsure of going into the year, but throughout 2 games has played really well. Let me hear you talk about Terrell Bernard.
I think the communication was great considering the crowd noise, especially when the game was close throughout much of the first half. I thought his communication was fantastic. The run blitzes and the run reads, you don't just hold Josh Jacobs to negative yardage for fun, without linebacker play. He was really good shooting the gap. He quickly changed the game into one that was getting a little sloppy early, Joe. And he made a play. Sure, it was a tip ball in the air. It's not like he mossed somebody like Milano did later on in the game, but he made a play that linebackers drop that. I'm not saying it's not a freebie. That ball, we've seen it drop with Tremaine Edmonds. We've seen it drop with others where you almost get it, just bobbles off the ground, and then they live to play another down. But that was a play you need to secure, and it's harder than it looks. The ball bobbling like that in the air, to come down with it without it hitting the ground and keep it off the ground is a tough play for a linebacker. That's what you're looking for from him. And then from there, the Bills didn't look back. At no point after that play, it was a game-changing play. How many linebackers make it? Don't know. Could it be 50% of them? Maybe. Could it be 1% of them? Maybe. We don't really know. Don't have enough data on it, but it was a play that changed the game. And the Raiders did not look right after that play at any point in the ball game. So that's what Terrell Bernard was able to do. And quite frankly, Christian Kirksey, what will we see from him? Will he be someone that even ever gets elevated without an injury? I don't think so at this point. There's still a lot of football to be played, and if there's some lapses there, but I think he's built himself a very large leash. It would have been one where Bills fans probably wanted to see 3 games in preseason from him. I get it, to really feel comfortable, but just because he didn't snap in a practice game does not mean that he wasn't always going to win the job. And think about how good these drafts have been so far. Torrance, Bernard, Cook. You just have some premier Benford. You just have some premier starters coming out of these drafts, where that number is starting to rise for starters out of the draft class, going forward in this. And then, have a good looking backup prospect in Dorian Williams. I think Elam's still going to have something to say about this when it's all said and done. I do think with the first sign of problem or injury, you'll see Kyer Elam at some point. There's just no reason to have him active when you have a vet like Dane Jackson who can play in a pinch. But they have something to be safe for him going forward. But Terrell Bernard, Joe, was a difference maker. And I need to see it again. And I need to see it for multiple weeks. But as a rookie 3rd-round pick last year, who's on a rookie deal, to have 3 more years of minimal salary is going to be very useful if they can make the most of that.
Agreed completely. I was impressed with the way he played. I was impressed with how he was gathering them at the line of scrimmage. Again, he was physical in the run defense. You saw him in a few key pass opportunities as well. And just again, the interception, that was huge. I think my favorite stat of everything today is that the Bills' 2 interceptions came from linebackers, which is just like
all 3 this year.
That is crazy, man. Matt Milano is unbelievable, man. Like, his presence on that field is just, he sets a war path, and every hit he makes is so destructive. And he's not always, it's impossible to be always in good position, but he's in good position a lot of the time. But that play on Josh Jacobs, of all people, was just honestly demoralizing, man. I mean, Jacobs gets that ball right to the chest, pries it out, and takes it, puts him in excellent field position. The Bills go on to score. It was just a great game for the linebackers. I was so happy that Terrell Bernard was, continuing his good play. And, you need to see this out of him. I mean, again, you alluded to it. He's in his 2nd year. He didn't really play much last year. He didn't play in the preseason. So I understand completely everyone's gigantic question mark that kind of sat there over him and what he would bring to the defense. But you could tell that McDermott's coaching him up well, that he's just trying to get him to just play smart football, to be able to recognize things. You saw early in the game, it seemed like he was having some communication problems. I saw him kind of make a signal and he wasn't set, and then the play got off, and I think they completed it for a 1st down. But outside of that, he was good, and I'm very impressed with him, and I'm excited to watch him on tape. But let's talk about the Bills' defensive line, Kevin, because, they didn't register a sack tag. At least I don't think officially they did, but it felt like their presence was just, felt, for lack of a better term, all day. They were hurrying up Jimmy G. They were great in run D, and Ed Oliver was absolutely outstanding, to say the least. Let me hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you're going to look at the box score and see 3 tackles from Ed Oliver, 1 behind the line. You're going to say, that's okay. That's all right. You're not going to really know what the advanced stats as they come out, in the next, as they can continue to come out probably throughout the week and into the weekend, that you're going to start to see what he was really able to do. The pressure rate, he was dominant. I mean, he was on another level. They really didn't need them to do too much. The Bills' coverage was doing enough to confuse Jimmy G at times, outside of a few Devontae Adams plays and an end around. That was really what they mustered up. A couple of nice looking plays to Adams, who's really good, and then one end around. But outside of that, the Bills' defense in general played really well, and the D line's the big reason for it. You saw the run. Against the run was. If they don't score near perfect against the run, the end run doesn't count. I don't know really what people are looking at, because ultimately 55 yards rushing, 15 for 55, 22 of them were from Zamir White late in the game when the backups were in, and 1 34-yard end around in the first drive. Joe, put that in perspective. So in between the 56 yards that were given, so at the end of the game, in the last drive before the fumble, and then the first end around in the first drive, there was 3.5 quarters of football. They registered -1 yards in that period for 3.5 quarters. Ultimately, you can look at the 55 and just say it was a bad rushing day by the Raiders, but the Bills were downright dominant against the run. I said it earlier on my show and on others throughout Twitter. that the Bills do really good against running backs like Josh Jacobs. I'm glad that was backed up. They got by a speed running back in a weird game with Breece Hall, but outside of that, they were dominant. The Bills can't stop the run narrative was horrible. One that was not based in any factual evidence other than letting one gainer break off, which does count. But it's not factual. The median is not what you think the median is. The median against the Bills right now is probably 1 yard a carry. If you factor all the rushes against the Bills and you take the median, I would guarantee you it's like 2 yards. So ultimately against the yards per carry right now is probably, averaging in the 2 games, it's down in probably in the threes, the low threes, 3. I mean, it's dominant. And this D line was the main reason why. And Terrell Bernard, you cannot say enough about Terrell Bernard. And the big negative for him was supposed to be that he was going to get eaten up. He's small. He's going to get bodied. He's not going to be able to shoot the gap. Man, if he keeps playing like this in his second career game, in terms of, second career start in calling the defense, he had a couple of spot things last year. But really, this is what you want for in development. This is why you draft, and everybody that was angry on the draft last year can continue to see maybe the Bills can develop players and don't need to rush them on the field. And you see early on that some of these players that Oliver's continuing to get better, Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford, you're starting to see some development happen at some of these positions where, it's not an immediate all-pro player.
Yeah. It takes time. And again, we have a lot of season left, a lot to see from Bernard, Benford, even the likes of Dorian Williams if he gets his opportunity, and like certain sets or if he has to come in for a play. But I will say this, it is an incredible testament to their ability to draft and think ahead if these players, specifically Bernard, Benford, and some of their younger players that might have taken time to develop, actually pan out or are serviceable. And I think that's a rare quality to get consistently good starting play from your draft picks, many years in a row. And that's just a testament to Brandon Beane being one of the top GMs in the league, something I'll stand by. But yeah, Kevin, I'm glad you brought up the Bills rushing defense because again, Uber tweeted something really interesting earlier, and it was about standard deviation when you're evaluating rushing play and evaluating the numbers. And again, we had said it on the show last time, but outside of the explosive run, the Jets running backs were 3.3 yards per carry. I have to see what it actually was today, but considering Josh Jacobs was -2 yards, I cannot imagine it was great. And I have to just tip my cap to Sean McDermott because for the first 2 weeks, he has had great defense. And, he's gone against Zach Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo, but Jimmy Garoppolo and co had a good rushing performance against the Broncos last week and beat them. And it's not, a team that I think is world beating, but it's in a performance that we had to take note of going into any matchup show we had this week. And they shut them down almost completely, barring one early drive, which, let's be real, the Bills are soft on early drives. They were last year and they were today, but they solve it. They clamp down, and you saw just what a McDermott defense could be. It could be something that is just tailored to game situations where they still sit in the base nickel, but they know when to bring pressure. And McDermott was just an artist at work with that today. That first interception was masterful. It made me stand up off my couch. I just said, hell yeah, Sean, because I saw that and was like, that is a god tier play call. I'm so happy about that. But it's just important to understand, and I'll bring this point up again, rushing defense is skewed. Ultimately, what matters is, did they score 7? Did they score 3? Or did they not score at all? And then again, explosive runs are a problem, but look at the whole picture. 181-yard run, and then a series of a bunch of 2 to 3 chunk yards means your rushing defense figured it out and is playing better. And I'm fine with that. So that's good for me. Kevin, it's just like any other outstanding defensive performances or things that you took note of in this game today.
I mean, you got to still take note of Christian Benford in a tricky situation with Devontae Adams, what he was able to do. Beside, he's had some early assignments against some good receivers. You got Terry McLaurin, coming to town too. So it's never going to be easy here for the Bills. So ultimately the defense looked very good. And it did against the Jets. I mean, you're now averaging, defensively 13 points a game beside a punt return. That's not on the defense. So 13 points a game. And, we'll see what they're able to do against Eric Bieniemy. And then a test in Miami as well with Mike McDaniel. So it's going to get tricky fast. And you saw Micah Hyde, some with banged up a tiny bit. You saw Leonard Floyd with an ankle. Both said they should be fine. So we'll see what the clean injury report says. Hopefully there was no injuries again. It's been nice to see so far this season. And that will continue to be a big story. There is a direct correlation to amount of games missed or WAR from injuries factoring heavily against your team. At some point, teams get hurt. And if you stay fairly healthy, you start to really, your roster that's already good starts to really jump other rosters. So stay healthy. But the defense in general, the first drive wasn't great. I don't think it was good at all, but those were scripted plays really fueled by a really great Devontae Adams catching an end around. And then another great Devontae Adams play as well in the end zone. But outside of that, Joe, the Bills defense, and you've seen this underneath Sean McDermott defenses on the first drives, historically back many, many, many years, that they're able to clamp down once the team shows what they're playing. The offenses they'll run, what they're doing with whom. Then Sean McDermott makes a quick adjustment, and you got to give him credit for coaching in those situations because the defense was pretty good. And a team that was 1-0, and at one point in the second quarter, I was like, maybe the Raiders are the second best team in the AFC West. That division is not good. It's not good. They've gone 1-3 each week so far, and it hasn't been a really good looking division at all, Joe. So it's just going to be gifted to the Chiefs, and the Bills look really good against a team where is still technically sitting tied for first in the division with the Broncos and the Chargers being 0-2. So it's a good year to play that division. It's down even for the Chiefs, in my opinion. They didn't look good offensively again. So everyone's saying how hard the schedule is, but it's mighty easier, Joe, when the AFC West is nowhere near what it could be or what it projected to be.
Yeah, the Chargers laid an egg today, and it's disappointing to see a team with that much talent. It really is just uncanny how that's a team that finds ways to lose. It's disappointing because I love Justin Herbert, and I think they have a ton of talent. But yeah, I feel really good about this game, but obviously it's 1 week. I want to see repeated patterns of consistency with both Josh Allen, with the way this defense is playing. But, I think they have a great opportunity to kind of expose Sam Howell to some hell with Sean McDermott's play calling next week. Definitely a tall task when you have Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, some talent in that Washington offense. Brian Robinson had a great game. So they have their hands full. It's not going to be a gimme, even though people want to say it. But I think the Bills have an opportunity to even further right the ship, get to 2-1. We're going to have to see. I have more thoughts on the matchup preview, but first I want to let Greg and Aaron tell you about the Cover One Pass.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
Yes, the description is going to... Oh, the description is below. I flubbed that one. But the link is in the description below. Give it a click. The premium Slack channel is awesome with a lot of great discussion going on daily, as well as some other fantastic perks that I implore you to check out. Kevin, we're going to wrap it up today. I want to get your final thoughts just on this matchup with the Washington Commanders, or anything that you want to share, promote, or think of while I still have you.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Always great to be Saturday mornings and give, kind of be the final show before the matchup, right? But ultimately, we'll see what the Bills are going to be able to do against kind of a revamped Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy combination. What he's able to do. I don't think they looked overly impressive against the Broncos look bad, man. They lost to the Raiders and the Commanders. At some point, trading for old coaches, this isn't a thing. Can't give up assets for that. I heard all offseason how different that this would be underneath John Payton.
I could go on a rant about him, but I won't. I won't.
Yeah, we'll see. We the Bills play them, so let's save it for that week for your rant. but ultimately he's not good. I have seen nothing from this Broncos team, and the Commanders almost lost to them. And then the Cardinals, who almost beat the Commanders and the Giants, but flubbed both of those games in those situations, to where the Commanders have two of the easiest, strength of wins in the league. It's kind of a not real 2-0. If they beat the Bills, that'll be the respect they need, though. They'll be home. I'm sure it'll be roaring coming off a 2-0. I would have liked to play them off of a loss. I always generally like to see how teams respond off of a loss. That's what you can tell a lot about a team. But hey, I do think the Bills get it done, Joe. I don't think that there's going to be enough firepower there to compete neck and neck. The one matchup, again, as I've said in 3 straight weeks now, D-line, O-line. Their D-line sounds off. They got a good chance. If the Bills O-line looks like it has so far, I don't see it. I don't see Sam Howell going punch for punch with Josh Allen, especially the new 77% completion percentage Josh Allen. So it's going to be a big challenge for them, probably their first real test before they gear up against a really good division that they have to roll through. The Giants aren't going to always be an easy out, but they have 2 teams in the Eagles and Cowboys that going to be a challenge for them. So they need a first real shot after a couple of weeks getting your feet wet against a powerhouse for them. So I don't think they're overly good. They have let up 49 points so far this season against some poor teams. But they've scored 55 points. So we'll see. Bills are 6.5 point favorites on the road. BPI has them at a 75% favorite. So we'll see what they're able to accomplish in this one, and see what Sam Howell we get. I do think the Bills will do fine against not very great. Robinson's okay, not very great running game. So we'll see what they're going to be able to do against Sam Howell. So I don't know what your takeaway is going to be against Sam and how he's looked lately. But hey, started off strong, about 500 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. What you're looking for from one of those new starting guys.
Yeah, no, I think it's really not even just, don't get me wrong, like I'll throw respect to Howell away. He has him at 2-0. He had a couple of stretches, some nice plays, a really nice throw to Terry McLaurin today. It's not so much about that. What it's about is Eric Bieniemy, who has experience battling the Bills defense, even though it's Sean McDermott calling and not Frazier. He knows him. And, not having Patrick Mahomes absolutely helps things, but got to give credit to him. He had a great game plan today. That offense got it clicking and they played a good game. Yeah, it's O-line versus D-line for me, but also I think if the Bills can have a big game out of Trey White and Benford, there's been people saying that their safeties have looked a bit slow. I don't know if they've looked slow. I think they've been fine. I mean, they haven't really been tested at the same time, so I can't really tell, but I think our secondary is fine. And if they have the opportunity to shut down Terry McLaurin and make things tougher for Sam Howell, I do believe in this D-line. I do believe in our pass rush. I think Sean McDermott's going to throw some creative blitzes at Sam Howell since he's a less experienced quarterback, might be able to throw him off. But yeah, BPI had him at 71 going into the Raiders game. You saw how that turned out. Even higher percentage this upcoming week. It's going to be a matchup that I don't think Bills fans should sleep on. But, if the Bills pull out what they pulled out today and Josh Allen limits his mistakes and takes what's given to him and sets the table on those early downs, I do believe the Bills can come away with the win. Kevin, that's all I got for you today. One final time, you got anything you'd like to plug before we sign off for the week?
Nothing. Looking forward to what the Bills bring in week 3. Always fun being on under review. So that's always a good challenge. And Tuesdays, as always, you can catch me Tuesdays at 7:00, same network right here on the Cover One Sports Network. And we'll see what the Bills are able to do, if they can take this 2-1, or they're going to drop the 1-2 as they approach a big Miami game week 4. Be nice to maybe face off. We're not sure yet exactly, but face off as maybe 2-1 teams going for really the early division lead. So that's they do need this game. Not mandatory, but one where you'd like to go into the Dolphins game at home 2-1, get it done. This is, I had them marked 3-1 through this stretch. So that means they need to win back-to-back, Joe. So here we go. On the first 4 teams historically at 3-1 or 4-0 have a revolutionary chance to do something. Not to say you can't at 2-2, but a much bigger odds chance to do something. So I think the Bills coming away with two wins as you face into Jacksonville, the New York games. are going to be a big stretch to get this victory against a good D-line and a revamped, by all stretch right now, against two poor opponents, but a revamped offense underneath the enemy.
Yep, absolutely. And, my hope and thing I'll say to the Bills and fans is don't look past Washington for Miami. That game's huge, but this game's even bigger because being 2-1 going in home, like you said, against Miami matters way more to me than just, well, we dropped this game and it's an NFC game. No, I want to win this game and I want to win it decisively, but you can't look past your opponent. But yes, that's it for Under Review this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, drop a like on the video, subscribe to Cover One, subscribe to the Premium Pass. If you are interested in Underdog Fantasy, the link will be in the description below to sign up. Match up to $100 today. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Twitter at @show_DeRosa. When I am back to normal live recording on 9:30, I have a very special guest joining, but I will wait to announce it. But as always, take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go